Hey, there we go. Hey, everybody. It's been a long time since we've been on a Facebook Live with a guest, so we're excited to be here today. We have Mark Olis with Moultrie Mobile here. I can't wait because, y'all, we're going to talk about game cameras. And I don't know if you know this, but Tennessee deer season, Velvet Buck, is next weekend. I won't be there, but I'm really excited to talk about game cameras and how we can use them and other applications for them. So, hey, Mark, how you doing? I'm going to turn over to Krista and we'll get you introduced.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. We've been MIA on the Facebook Live for a bit, but we've done a lot of traveling this last 3 or 4 weeks, and we are excited to have Mark with us. So, Mark, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about who you are and your role at Moultrie Mobile, and then we'll get started on game cameras, the tips and tricks and things to know.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you all for having me on. Yeah, so I work for Moultrie Mobile, which is a division of Pradco, and I've been with Pradco and Moultrie Mobile now for probably 3.5 years or so. And prior to that, I've been in the outdoor industry. I was in the publishing side of things. I was an editor on a number of different hunting magazines. So graduated in journalism from Auburn University, and I've been working in the outdoor industry ever since. So then specifically at Moultrie Mobile, I'm the content marketing manager. So I work with a lot of our partners and handle a lot of the blogs and any kind of written material and things like that. Doing interviews and various things. I work on all that.
Awesome. Well, we're excited today for a couple of reasons. One, we are going to talk about the new Delta camera before we get off the live. But this is one of those seasons where people start really thinking about things in the hunting world. And often they'll look at game cameras for that component. As Karen mentioned earlier before we got jumped on, there's so many ways to use a game camera that's not hunting. If my mother is watching, she'll be the first to tell you she's got a game camera to watch the animals eat her very expensive and dedicated plants in her yard. So she's the one that's going to run out in the middle of the night, start screaming because the deer's there. So let's kind of get started about game cameras in general, right? So using the Delta as our model for discussion today, how do you set something like that? You buy it, you take it out of the box. What happens next?
Yeah, there you can see Karen's got one, and I've got one here outfitted with the antenna on, and
I'm just taking mine out of the box. So
that's right. So the antenna is not attached when it's in the box, and as far as setup, like activating this, we've tried to make it as simple as possible for the user, and the best way to do it is through the app on the phone. So you would download the Moultrie Mobile app onto your cell phone, on your smartphone, and it's a free app. There's no charge there. And once you have that account set up, you can then go into the process. It's called activate a device, and then you pull that up, and then every camera has a unique barcode, and there's a bunch of numbers that you would have to manually enter, except we've got in the app there, you can use your camera and scan that, and it'll autofill that. And it's really, after that, it literally walks you through the process, and it's about 4 steps. One of the steps, you would enter your credit card or debit card info once you activate it for a monthly subscription, so it will then transmit those images to you. But after that process, I mean, that's it. Once the camera is active and showing up, there you go. Yep. Once it's showing up, then you can start using that camera. And we always recommend to anyone setting up a new camera, set it on the counter at home, or just set it in the backyard where you'll walk by it, or the dogs will. Just get a few images, make sure everything's working, because it's there's nothing more frustrating than going out into the woods, having the camera, and then trying to troubleshoot something out there. Highly frustrating. I don't recommend it. So just get some pictures of the kids, the dogs running around, make sure it's sending it. and you know, then you're ready to go. You have peace of mind, everything's working, and then you can go set that in the field, turn it on. There is a button on there that will allow you to take a test image. So it'll send it immediately to the app. That way you can see and know that camera, you know, what it's looking at is good. And then if you're happy with it, you just walk away, and then it'll start sending those images to your phone as it captures them.
So you've made the purchase, you've bought the camera. Is there anything else that you need to invest in at that time to be ready to roll?
So you'll need batteries. It takes 12 AA batteries. You know, lithium batteries, they cost more, but lithium batteries will run the camera longer. They just absolutely work better over time. Does not mean you can't use alkaline. Absolutely you can. Lithiums run longer. And then in the winter months, I absolutely recommend lithium because that cold weather really works against alkaline batteries. So instead of getting poor battery life, you'll have a better battery life. You will need an SD card, just a class 10 SD card, anywhere from 4 GB to 32 GB is fine.
So I want to talk about that for a second, just because that's where I have had a nightmare with cameras, because it really needs to be that 10. And for you guys, I'll see if I can get one. So I bought all these off of Amazon thinking I was going to be smart for my game cameras. And if you can see that little circle right there somewhere, so that says class 4. So these were no bueno in my cameras. And so it took me a while to figure out it has to be a class 10, right? So, and you can order those specifically.
Absolutely. And in Moultrie, we have them available on our site or at retailers where you're purchasing the camera. And just to hit on that, as far as the SD cards go, you want a class 10, 4 to 32 GB, but you don't want to use any of the micro mini cards, the ultra capacities or high speed cards, things like that, or the SD XC cards. You can start to get into issues there. And a lot of those high speed cards are geared towards, video equipment, high-end video equipment. And that's just not what you need in the camera. So yeah, class 10 and you're good to go there.
So Mark, I have 2 questions. One, we have a question from one of our viewers. That's how long do the batteries last? But the other question I have for you is, can I take my card once I have the right one? Can I take my card from one camera to another camera, or do I need to keep it kind of with that same camera?
So you can swap it between cameras. The one thing that you must do though when you do that is when you put that card into the new camera, be sure to format it in the camera. So the Delta and other cameras, all of our cameras have a format option. As long as you format it in the camera, it actually puts some, information on that card specific to that camera. You won't have any issues if you do that. If you just swap it and place it in that camera, turn it on, it may well, not work. I mean, you may not get any images. It's frustrating. So if folks will just, and as a general rule of thumb, even if you are swapping cards with the same camera, just every time you put it in there, I always turn the camera off, pull my SD card on a regular trail camera, put it in, this pocket, wherever I know those are the cards I want to look at. Then I get the new one out, put it in, turn the camera on, format it, and then start the camera up. And I never have any issues that way.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. I'm always just ripping them out and throwing them in there and wondering, why didn't my camera card get camera?
And then you come back 2 weeks later and you're like, where's the images?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's frustrating. So yes, always format it and you'll have no issues.
All right. And so Peggy asked, how long do the batteries last?
Yeah, so in the Delta, from running it, if you have your camera on an area that, say, a feeder where there's a lot of activity, you got a lot of does coming in, or it's a food plot, obviously the more images it takes, the quicker it's going to run batteries down. But the other thing that I tell everyone on the cell cams, There's options to get those photos immediately, and especially folks that are new to cell cams, they love that because they want to see it. They want to see that. Oh wow, look at that! That deer's there right now. You know, it's fun, it's exciting. But I really stress to people, it's far better if battery life is something you care about. Only put that. I run my cameras to upload images twice a day, and the reason I say that, every time that camera connects to the server, that's when it's using a large amount of battery power. It takes a lot to get that connection. Now, once it makes the connection, whether it sends one image or 20 images, you know, it does that fairly quickly. So that doesn't really hurt. So that's why I recommend, instead of that immediate mode where that camera may take 50 images in a 24-hour period, that's 50 connections to the server. That's using a lot of battery. You're only probably going to get a few weeks, a month, if you run it on the immediate mode. If you put it to like twice a day, something like that, I mean, in season, I regularly can run cameras on feeders where they're getting a lot of images for 2 months, and that's just regular old alkaline batteries. You throw lithium batteries in there, then you start going several months, even looking at running it for the season. And then the other thing I recommend to people, it is an extra investment, but if you upgrade to like a solar panel option, or we have battery boxes, they're in weatherproof housing, 12-volt rechargeable battery in there, and it's got solar panels on the top and side. And that's a newer product. I started running that just to test it myself back in January, and I've got a camera that I only took one out there. That camera and modem still has 100% battery life, and we're in late August now, and that was that right there just tells you, like, then you don't even have to go and mess with that camera, because all the settings are on the app, so you can do all your settings from there.
Okay, Chris, I know you have questions. I
do have a quick question. So back to the app and multiple cameras. You can load multiple cameras onto the same app. Absolutely. And then be able to see them all from the one app.
Absolutely. So once you set up your account and you download the app, set up your account, every time you activate a camera, it will load onto your account, because that's where you're activating it to. So yes, you can run one camera, or you can run 20. I mean, we've got power users that they've got 30 plus cameras they're running, and all those are running off the same app. Absolutely.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm in here. So when I pulled up my app, it reminded me. So I have a lot of sunsets and sunrises. So I don't know. I think that my camera either picks up the shadows of the sun, or I have it set to bad, or I need to go up there and weed eat around it, probably. But so when you set up a camera, how do you make sure that we're getting the images that we want to see, which is the wild game, and not getting a million little spiders flying in front of it?
Yep. No, that's a great question. So rule number one is, I tell folks, don't ever point your camera east or west, because you're either going to deal with the sunrise or the sunset, and you're not going to, during those periods, and when do deer move, sunrise, sunset. Right. So you're going to get a lot of images, and you're like, I can't tell what that is. I can see some legs, I can see some ears, but it's so whited out, overexposed from that intense light. So never face them that way. And then the other thing I tell folks is, especially in hunting season, you got to remember the sun is going into the southern sky that time of year. And the further north you get, the more exaggerated that is. So during season, fall, winter time, I always point those cameras north as well. So you're saying, well, geez, that really eliminates a lot of my options. And that's true. It does. You really want to look for an area where you can point that camera north. You'll never have any issues with sunrise, sunset, overexposure. And another thing that I recommend is, we sell, it's a camera stake. It's a metal stake system, sits about 3 feet off the ground. If you're in a field environment or something like that, or you just don't have a tree that's going to work to get that camera north, that's where those camera stakes are invaluable. You can place that in the ground, position your camera perfectly, and you have no issues at that point.
And that really helps when you're trying to walk around with your camera finding cell service. Like, have a stake. I don't have any under the trees. I have to use your stakes. Krista, we had another question from Lee. Is the app available for both iOS and Android?
It is, absolutely. So you either go to the App Store if you're on iOS, or the Google Play Store for Android, and it's on both places, absolutely.
So what about cell phone service providers? Is it multiple providers, or you have to pick just one?
So we on the Moultrie mobile cameras, you have two options. You have Verizon or AT&T, and both of those are 4G. Those are the two largest networks out there. So, I mean, there's pretty much covered. Now, I mean, you know as well as I do, there's just some areas that don't have service.
Yeah.
The camera is not going to send you images if there's no cell service, or if it's just so weak that it can't connect properly. And that's another thing, going back to battery life, the stronger the signal, the better that's going to help you on your batteries as well. But one question we get a lot of, because a lot of the different cell camera manufacturers out there require this. They ask, well, hey, I have a Sprint phone. Can I use your AT&T or Verizon? And the answer is yes. So everything handled with Moultrie Mobile is done through Moultrie Mobile. So it does not matter what your cell phone provider is. This isn't going to show up on your cell phone bill. This will be just a Moultrie Mobile specific billing. And that way it gives you the freedom to choose what you want. We have users that are running both AT&T and Verizon, because they may have a lease somewhere that AT&T's better, and then they've got another place where Verizon's better. So you can mix and match, have them on the same account. It doesn't matter, because it's independent of your phone, your cell phone.
That's a good point. It's not the actual phone provider. This is running separately.
That's right.
Back to where you were giving some tips earlier about the north, south, east, and west positioning of your camera. Are there some other key things that people might find informative and help with the frustration of setting a camera that you can share?
Yeah, sure. We always try to get that camera. I mean, 3 feet is that's just a good rule of thumb. Now, obviously, not all terrain is flat, so you will have to adjust. But that 3 foot puts you in great frame for deer, turkey picks, really most animals. It's going to trigger well. But the one thing that I would always recommend, and when I'm choosing a spot, maybe it's a great spot for it, but there's a lot of grass, there's a lot of saplings maybe growing up in front of that camera. Go ahead. I mean, whether you got a weed eater, a machete, your bare hand, take the time to pull those, clear that debris out, at least for a good 10 yards or so.
10 yards?
Yeah,
that's a problem too.
Well, and because what happens is, first of all, if you have, those saplings with leaves or grass in front of, say a deer's walking behind those, well, that nighttime flash is going to illuminate that really bright in front of it. Well, you're going to have a hard time seeing actually what's behind there. So that's one reason to clear it. The other is usually in the summer with the intense sunlight, when the sun's hitting on those grasses and leaves and various things, that's how the motion detection actually works. It's reading the difference between the ambient temperature and the heat on something else. So, when the sun's shining on a leaf, it's actually a lot hotter than the environment. So it's causing a trigger, and you're like, why do I have all these pictures of nothing? It's grass blowing. And so there again, that is the cause of that. And the cameras have gotten better. The Delta, it's got an adaptive trigger system that kind of reads that a little more. So you don't see that as much as some of the other cameras, but that is the cause, is what's going on there if you get a lot of those images of like blowing grass or something.
Okay, Mark. So we're way over time, but I'm going to ask you maybe just a few more questions.
Sure.
So when you set this up and it has like the PIR sensitivity, and what does all that mean, and how do we need to set that?
Sure. So the PIR, that is the motion detection element. So that's what's reading the difference in the heat. And so here's what I typically do. I found that in most cases, because I try to set my camera up, I talked about 10 yards clearing debris. I like my cameras, I'm not, the farther an animal is in that image, it's harder to tell what it is, right?
Mhm.
So you can tell it's a deer or a turkey, but the detail gets lost. So I like to capture, the images within that 10-yard range. I find that to be a good range. So if it's a feeder or a field, and so in setting that up, I find that the low PIR setting gets everything I need, and it cuts down on some of those false triggers that you see with the blowing grass and things like that. Um, Now, if you find, the great thing about the cell cam is put it on the low PRI, and then if you're thinking, well, maybe this isn't detecting as many animals as I'd like, well, then you just pull your cell phone out, bump it up to the high PIR, and then the next time that camera checks in, it will send it that new info. And that goes for all your camera settings. They're all done from the app. So anything you don't like or see, just change it. And you never have to go to the field to do that.
So last question. I'm sorry, Chris. How about the timing? I'm a camera junkie, so you need to know this about me. How many seconds should you have between those pictures when it gives you the opportunity to take a few pictures? How many seconds is best?
So in those cases, I would say it depends on what is your camera looking over. When I put cameras on feeders, and specifically, I know this feeder gets a lot of activity, a lot of does. I personally don't need a bunch of pictures of the same deer over and over. It's redundant at that point. So I'll actually set those settings. I'll set them up as high as 5 minutes. If I know it's a feeder that's getting a lot of activity, I typically am not missing those. And, if a buck comes in, they're usually hanging out long enough for that camera to get a picture of that deer. Or if he comes in by himself, you're still going to get the image. So in a high traffic area, you might want to put it at a minute. Just again, you have the freedom from the app to say, I want to bump it up a few seconds. I want to take it to a minute. You can do that and see how you like that. If you're on a trail where it's just deer walking by, maybe you're not going to get a whole bunch of pictures. I mean, I wouldn't put it on any delay, just because, during the rut, that buck may be right behind a doe, and you don't want to miss that. So if it's something like that, that's what I recommend.
What I love about your camera, that I don't have the Delta out yet, I will, but what I love is that I can do it. I can send it a request, and it'll send me a picture of the field. So I can send it, say, take a picture, and it'll turn out and give me a picture, so I can see if it's raining, because we're way away from our property. So
Sure.
I can always see what's happening there, even if it hasn't checked in with a picture, which is really exciting.
The other cool thing about the Delta that our past models didn't do is the Delta will send video clips as well. So if you have it set on video, you can get and it's got a great microphone on it. So I'm excited about turkey season. Hearing those gobbles, yeah, like I'm really pumped about that.
So, I mean, I'm a little obsessed with turkeys.
Yeah.
You can see that, but I'm like,
absolutely.
That's my dealio right there.
So Mark, I know we're running over on our time. Okay. If you're good with it, let's spend a few moments and tell us what is different or new about the Delta Cam, and the things that we need to know in the field today if we're going out to purchase the Delta Cam.
Yeah, sure. So the Delta, it's got a couple of the new features found on the Delta that we didn't have on past models. It has built-in GPS on it. So, and the app itself has an interactive map function on it. So you can click on the app, click on the interactive maps, and when you're hanging that camera at your property, you're going to see exactly where it is on that property. So, maybe you're like, well, if you put a bunch of cameras out, that could be helpful, because it's like, gee, where did I put them all? But also, if that camera moves, you can see where it goes, and as well. So that's another great aspect, something the customers really asked for. So this model has GPS. It does send the video clips, so it'll take 15-second video clips, and it sends those. The way that works is you would request it, so it can take a photo and a video at the same time. And if you see something interesting, or maybe a buck, and it comes in just as a static image, but you can request to get that video, and the next time it checks in, that video will be uploaded to the app, and then you can actually watch it from there. And like I said, it does have sound, so it's really cool. That's been probably my favorite feature of the new camera, is getting those videos, and just seeing that cool interaction from the animals out in the field, stuff you just don't always see. And then the camera sells for $99.99.
What?
Yeah, so it's great. And then, you can go to Bass Pro. That Bass Pro and Cabela's and others have had sales on it. I think it was like 79 or 75 for Father's Day. So yeah, it's a tremendous deal in that aspect for everything you get.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I know Karen had to mute because her puppies were chiming in there.
That's okay.
Mark, thank you for coming on with us today. As questions come up, if there's something and people watching in replay that we can't answer, we might shoot them over to you. See if you can help get us answers back to the following, so that they'll know those what the next steps are for them.
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to. And if anyone out there is already on the Moultrie Mobile system, or you have questions, you can go to moultriemobile.com. There's a number to reach out to our customer service. They're available 7 days a week now. So, even on weekends, if you have a troubleshooting, you can reach right out to those folks. And anyone that isn't on Moultrie Mobile would like to see it, download the free app. And when you do, there's a button you can hit demo, and that's actually a full version of the app. We have cameras out on various properties, and they can use all the full functions of the app and see how the app works, and see if it's something they like, so you can really try it before you buy it, kind of thing.
That's awesome. I've got to say something quickly about your customer service. When I was working with my mom's wildlife camera for her backyard, I may or may not have caught what kind of SD card needed to be used and what we were supposed to be doing. I might have read every third sentence and not every sentence. And so I had to reach out to customer service, and they were Johnny on the spot.
Great.
Once I solved my problem, I went on about my day. And about 2 days later, they reached out to me and said, we want to make sure everything's still working properly. Did it solve your problem? Can we do anything else? They were amazing.
Absolutely.
So kudos to your customer service.
Well, thank you. Thank you for saying that. We really appreciate that. And yes, that's why I tell everyone, please reach out to them. That's what they're there for.
Thank you. Karen, do you want to begin to close us out?
Yeah, I will. I think we'll do, we can do our business in the comments since we ran so long, don't you think?
Sure.
And I just want to tell everybody, thanks very much. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy. It's been a long time since we've seen you. We'll try to get back here with some more topics. Mark, oh my gosh, what great information. I have to go reset some cameras, do a little yard work. But I am super stoked to try this camera. We're going to have the camera at the trailer. We'll debut it this weekend. We're at Table Rock for a private event with Boy Scouts. Which is going to be fun, a little different than we normally do. But then we'll be in Independence, Missouri in a couple more weeks, and everyone can come out there and see the camera itself. We'll have it powered on and turned on so that we can actually show you on the app how it works. Maybe you can walk in front of it, get your picture taken. I don't know. But it's going to be exciting. And we're just really thrilled for this partnership. Thank you for supporting Shoot Like a Girl. We can't do what we do without the help from our partners, and we really appreciate it. Krista, back to you, and then Mark will let you close it out.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in Independence, Missouri on September 11th and 12th. I'm going to throw it to Mark to say goodbye for the day, and everybody have a great afternoon.
Well, again, thank you all for having us on, and we really appreciate everyone joining. And yeah, just check it out, moultriemobile.com. If you got any questions, reach out to our folks in customer service. They'll be glad to help you out.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Let's see.